There he comes.
This young runner representing the Greater Lowell Road Runners.
Go, Michael! Woo!
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So before I tell you the topic for today's video, I apologize to you guys that I didn't record Tuesday. I recorded Monday, and I actually spent probably 5 hours on the video, but then, YouTube has problems sometimes, and I finished editing, and YouTube wouldn't accept the video. So if any of you guys watched my most recent video, that is not the video I wanted to post, so I'll be probably taking that one off and just completely deleting it. Because, again, what I was going to show you just became a gray screen if you guys watched it, and then it just went straight to the ending. So I'm going to take that one off, and I don't think that video is going to work out. I will try doing that again next Monday. As I announced on Sunday, that was the weekly running news for kids, but it didn't work out on Monday, so I'll have to try it next Monday. So without further ado, let's talk about the topic for today's video. So the topic I want to cover for today's video is soreness and injury. The reason I chose this topic for today is because right now I'm actually having soreness right here in the back of my leg. So I'm actually living through it, so I know how it feels. So that's why I chose that particular topic for today's video. I'll be talking about what is the difference between injury and soreness, what is injury, what is soreness, how they can make you feel, how they affect you in your running and everyday life. All those topics will be covered. But without further ado, guys, let us jump right into the video. So guys, the first section I want to cover in this video, or the first block I want to cover in this video, is what is soreness? So as most of you guys probably know, soreness is something typically you get after a hard run or maybe even a race or a speed workout. You can typically feel it whenever you run. When you walk, it doesn't really come upon you, but it's almost like it doesn't hurt, but it's just like this feeling that you get somewhere in your body when you typically have a hard run, a speed workout, a race, and anything else that you're putting all the pounding on your body. So that's basically soreness right there. I will be talking about injury in the next block, and I will be talking about the difference in the block after that. What the difference is going to be very interesting because you guys might not think there's a difference, but people who have lived through soreness and lived through injury know that there is a huge difference between those two. So yeah, that's pretty much what soreness is. I'm sure most of you guys have probably lived through this after a race, or if you're like me, after a track meet or even a hard run or speed workout. I tend to get sore the next day, and so I tend to get pretty sore the next day if I was putting a really hard pound on my body. If I'm lucky, I don't get sore that day, but I do get sore either the day after that or even the third day after that hard run. So, yeah, that's pretty much the introduction to soreness. And now I want to cover the second block, which is going to be about injury. Alright guys, so this next block is going to be comparing injury and soreness and telling you basically the difference between them. I kind of already did that in the introduction to soreness and injury, but I actually want to take a full block to compare them and contrast them and tell you basically the differences between them, because there are huge differences. So, first off, let's start with comparing soreness. As you guys heard from me, soreness is typically a feeling that you get when you've done a hard run, maybe a race, maybe a speed workout, maybe you went to the track and had a meet. That's typically soreness. As you guys heard me say so many times, soreness is not painful. It's just a feeling that you have that might it might be harder to run on it, but you can force through it. Injury, as I said, is a pain that you get when typically you pull a muscle or you break a bone. Normally, pulling a muscle is more common. It'll actually be painful to do most physical activity, and sometimes even standing up and just like running in place can hurt it. So, yeah, injury and soreness definitely have big differences. Again, comparing them, soreness is just a feeling that you have that might make it harder to run for you, but you can still force through it, whereas injury is a pain that you have that you actually have to take time off running to make it feel better, and sometimes even get help from someone to make it feel better. Another thing that's different about them is you don't normally get injury unless typically you can feel injury coming on, because if you start feeling pain in your leg, or most of the times your leg or maybe your hip or something, you can typically feel injury coming on. Normally, soreness you don't feel the soreness. The soreness doesn't really occur to you until really the day after. Or normally later in the day when you tend to stop and then sit down for a while and then try to get back up, that's when it's harder to get back up. Injury you can feel coming on because it'll start hurting a little bit, and then it'll start hurting a little more, and it'll start hurting a little more, and then you'll finally get to the point where you just can't sustain the feeling of that pain anymore. So your body will actually tell you, I cannot run anymore, you have to stop. So, yeah, those are probably the differences between soreness and pain, and injury, pain and injury, pretty much the same thing. But yeah, those are probably the differences. This block was definitely a block I felt I had to cover, and I felt I had to do the introductions before this, because if I did the introductions after this, it wouldn't really make sense. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's move on to the next block. Alright guys, so this next block is going to be about how injury and soreness will affect you. So, once again, I've probably mentioned this so many times in this video that you guys already know what I'm going to say. But let's start off with soreness. So, soreness can definitely affect you in the way that it definitely makes it harder to run when you're sore. Your legs are typically more tired, or whatever part of your body is typically more tired, and you seem to be sometimes more tired when your body, you tend to slow down when you have soreness, or you tend to slow down when you have soreness, just because the body can't go quick when it has that much, when it has that feeling, just like tugging. Sometimes it almost feels like someone's just tugging you and trying to make you stop. Your body will keep going, but the body almost wants to keep going, but it wants to tug you back at the same time. So it's almost like two parts of the body are fighting against each other. One part of the body wants to stop you and pull you back. The other part wants to keep going. So your physical part wants to stop you and get you pulled back, but your mental part wants you to keep going. So, yeah. Those are typically how soreness affects you. It can also affect you in the way that when you guys who have lived through soreness, and you've probably all lived through soreness by now, and pain, or no, not pain, sorry, just soreness, when you've lived through it, normally when you go to bed that night, and when you rest and sleep for a long time, you haven't moved anything, that will typically tighten up, and you have to loosen it up in the morning before you go run, or it's going to hurt when you go run. So, yeah, you always want to try to loosen that kind of thing up before you go run that morning so that you don't feel it quite as much. You might still feel it, but as long as you don't feel it quite as much, it's going to be better. You don't want to feel it because it'll actually make your run more uncomfortable if you can feel it. If you can feel it a little bit, you can push through that, but you don't want it like very much feelable. Because if it's that feelable, you're not going to have a very enjoyable run. So, yeah, guys, that probably covers that for how soreness affects you. Now let's talk about how injury affects you. As I've previously said in many times in this video, injury affects you in many different ways, such as soreness. Injury typically affects you because it'll actually prevent you from running. It'll prevent you from running big time. Sometimes even months of not running can happen by an injury. So yeah.